Dr. Haryadi will be present about the risk assessment. Dr. Haryadi now is the leader of ASEAN of Epidemiology Expert Association. Dr. Haryadi, maybe the time 10 until 15. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I got my permission that during this presentation I would like to present in English the slide, but I will talk mixed between Bahasa and English. Hopefully it will help. And I would like to start, I want to underline what the minister I have said, that every policy there are some consequences. Setiap kebijakan ada konsekuensi-konsekuensi yang harus diperhitungkan. Konsekuensi tadi, it is not only from the health aspect, but also in a broader aspect, as Bapak Menteri mentioned that. And also I would like to underline the IHR. Di dalam IHR dijelaskan, di dalam memutus rantai penularan tanpa harus menghambat arus orang dan barang. It's been stated clearly in the IHR document. Jadi untuk itu, it is very important to know a little bit about risk analysis. So my time now I want to use to talk about risk analysis from the more theoretical aspect. By definition, risk analysis is an activity in analyzing the possible impact of a calculated risk might change the outcomes and objective of particular project, including a qualitative and quantitative impact analysis in order to mitigate. Artinya setiap kebijakan seharusnya, dan saya yakin sudah dilakukan, melakukan risk analysis tadi untuk memperhitungkan seberapa besar impact yang akan keluar, yang akan muncul akibat dari kebijakan tadi, bukan hanya menyelesaikan masalah. Kita punya suatu perusahaan yang menggunakan moto menyelesaikan masalah tanpa masalah. Jangan sampai kita menyelesaikan masalah, meng-create another masalah. Jadi untuk itu perlu adanya risk analysis. Next slide. Di dalam risk analysis tadi, next slide please. Ya, kita perlu tahu mengenai, rasanya lebih baik saya ya. Jadi risk analysis adalah suatu proses untuk melihat kemungkinan adanya adverse event. Kalau kita bicara adverse event, akibat dari suatu policy, risk analysis adalah suatu study of the underlying uncertain of a given course of action and refer to probability of a project success or failure. Jadi, in every policy, we have to predict two sides of possibility, success or failure. Those two sides has been calculated carefully. What about the success of the policy? Give some impact on adverse effect. If the failure, what is the impact of other sector? Risk analysis often work as a tandem of a forecasting professional to minimize to minimize the future negative unforeseen effect. Risk analysis allow a balance. Pak Menteri tadi sudah menyampaikan harus balance antara kebijakan di sektor kesehatan dengan kebijakan di luar kesehatan. COVID-19 give us a very good lesson learned how the disease impact. The policy to mitigate the disease give a very big impact on economical, on social, political, and others. Jadi risk analysis itu membutuhkan ada dua pendekatan, kualitatif and kuantitatif risk analysis. Kualitatif kita akan mengatakan what kind of adverse impact. We have to identify what kind of adverse impact in many other aspects, and then how to mitigate. Institution whom to mitigate could be out of the Ministry of Health, out of the health sector. But this adverse impact due to the policy of health. The second is the quantitative. We have to calculate how big in terms of number of cases, big the amount of the cost in handling the case, but also the impact of the policy from the economical side. How much loss of the, let's say, tourism impact, how much it costs from the economical, how much it costs from the social aspect. So for that, we need a risk management. Untuk itu kita membutuhkan suatu manajemen risiko yang kadang-kadang kita lupa. Sometimes we forget to put the risk management built in our plan. Risk management is part of the risk analysis. Risk analysis is part of the policy plan. I use an example from the financial world that risk management is the process of identification, analyze, and acceptance or mitigation of uncertainty in investment decision. Tadi Ibu Indah sudah menyinggung masalah investment. Sejauh mana, how far the investment in health give adverse impact on other sector. So from the country perspective, we have to calculate everything. Gain in health, sometimes lose in other from health. Essentially, the risk management occurs when an investor or fund manager analyze and attempt to quantify the potential for losses of an investment, such as moral hazard, and then takes appropriate action or inaction, given the fund's investment objective and risk tolerance. So I took it from the Will Kenton. Next, so in a healthcare, if I talk before from the general perspective, for the healthcare, as Ibu Endang mentioned also, that there's some circle of risk analysis in healthcare organization. First, of course, the identify the risk. Identification of the risk need a very important step that we know what kind of risk. What kind of risk? Many things could be happen. From the IHR document, we have multi-hazard. So for the management of multi-hazard, we need to consider broader aspect. Identify the risk and then analyze the risk. At the first, we talk about the what kind of risk. The second one, we have to analyze how big the risk. This is what, this is we, and then we need to evaluate the risk. How big the impact of that risk will hamper the policy. Okay? And then, based on this is the risk assessment. But risk assessment without action is like everyone us know that surveillance without action is nothing. Surveillance should followed by action. So as well this risk assessment. Risk assessment, the outcome is the risk factor identification. So what kind of action needed to mitigate the impact? So the next step is how to treat the risk. Treatment the risk need to further exploration about the big of the risk. And then control and report. How to contain the risk. Because some risk can be contained, some risk can be only mitigate. Beberapa risiko bisa dihilangkan, beberapa bisa dikurangi. Dan berakhir dengan suatu tindakan control. So this is a circle in a health sector that, as you mentioned, is a full circle. For that we need a communication further with other sector. Jadi analisis risiko pada kesehatan tadi tidak bisa berdiri sendiri. Jadi kita bicara mengenai lesson learned. Pada waktu Menteri Kesehatan menerapkan PSBB, pembatasan sosial berskala besar, pasti sudah dipertimbangkan economical adverse impact. Pedagang bakso tidak keluar, bisa keluar jualan. Pegawai harus tinggal, pegawai sih nggak ada masalah. Tapi pekerja harian terpaksa kehilangan pekerjaannya. Anak istrinya tidak bisa mendapatkan uang harian pada waktu itu. Akibatnya apa? Terjadi social adverse impact. Economical adverse impact automatically will cause social adverse impact. So what's going to happen? Perlawanan, penolakan. Sehingga pada waktu terjadi PSBB, kita bisa melihat transportation adverse effect. Ada pembatasan pergerakan. Ingat, there is some regulation from the government, no mudik, ya kan? Tidak boleh mudik. But in fact, jalur-jalur tikus jadi jalur-jalur macan. Orang tetap artinya apa? Kebijakan tadi belum cukup menutup. Jadi kalau kita kembali pada secara umum, COVID pandemic membutuhkan containment, yes, of course. Everybody will agree. But when to conduct containment, talking about the resource mobilization, which is resource generating and resource reallocation. What are the consequences of resource reallocation? Some program, they reduce their budget. Some program, they don't have sufficient budget. Sehingga dalam hal ini, terjadilah adverse impact in terms of money, in terms of budget. There is some reduced budget allocation for other program. And we can see the direct impact is low control program coverage. Jadi kalau cakupan dari program-program itu memang sudah rendah, akibat dari adanya realokasi dan sebagainya, kemungkinan terjadinya KLB, risiko of potential outbreak, we have to calculate. Di sisi lain, there's an impact from social. This resource mobilization in terms of the general local authority, they will fight how to survive their area for other health, other non-health activities. Jadi inilah suatu contoh membutuhkan adanya suatu risk analysis yang penting. Jadi skeletal step of risk analysis adalah identification of threat, vulnerability, and uncertainties, understanding the impact. Understanding the impact is very important. Create or using model for risk analysis, sampling of the model, and analysis the result and implementing risk management. Jadi adalah suatu step-step yang harus dilakukan untuk melakukan risk analysis tadi. Untuk itu ada beberapa, there are some popular and most commonly used for risk analysis. I don't want to talk about this because should be at the classroom. Delphi technique risk analysis, decision tree analysis, probability and consequence matrix, Swift analysis, and bow tie analysis. So whatever you want to use, at least you have to choose one of these to calculate how big the adverse effect and how big the loss due to certain policy. The conclusion is risk analysis is essential part. Risk analysis is an essential part of all project, all policy, at every level and every organizational security. Risk can directly impact of project success or failure. A certified risk management professional is needed in order to protect the organization and its project from this threat. So my conclusion is that we need to have risk analysis carefully conducted by a professional who knows to conduct risk analysis, risk management. By that, we will have a valid data how big the adverse impact of a certain policy. Saya kira ini yang bisa saya sampaikan sebagai singkat. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Pak Dr. Haryadi Wibisono atas presentasinya. The short presentation but very compact. This is limited time, but maybe I will open one question if the audience there are. Oke, Pak, silakan Pak Devriman.
Thank you, Bu Dr. Kurnia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Devriman Jafri from PAII West Sumatra chapter. We have a question and I want to address to Bu Endang and also Pak Haryadi. We agree about the COVID-19. We have many experience and not only in the in the government center, and also in the all of province in Indonesia. I remember Dr. Kato said have the social media impact for the beginning issue the COVID-19 in December 2019, and we know that Indonesia has been reported the first cases in March in 2020. So my question is WHO and also Indonesia government already have or not about what they influence the social media to respond and control pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia. I think, based on our experience in West Sumatra, not easy to give the advocacy to our government and also our governor and vice governor in the West Sumatra to make sure. But Pak Haryadi said, we know that the West Sumatra, the first document about the PSBB after the KI Jakarta already declared for the PSBB, not easy. But we know the epidemiologists, I think, are expert to calculate the risk of analysis. But the big problem, Pak Haryadi, about how to communicate about of the risk to our government, but not easy. I think it's our problem. And also, when I also lecture in the Faculty of Public Health, but the epidemiologists, I think the one of the competency need how to to communicate and also how to give the advocacy to our government and the government leader and also the health policy maker. I think it's a big problem about one of the competency about the epidemiologists in the future. I need we construct about the curriculum to advocacy to our government and how to easy to communicate about of the risk. And also we have already many site and expertise about how to calculate the risk, and also include the quantitative and qualitative approach. I hope Mr. Kato also have the answer my question, but in the beginning, social media impact also influence about the response and control pandemic in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Devriman. I think this is comprehensive question. Only one. Sorry, I can open another question because we have limited time. Maybe there are statement for.
Yeah, thank you. Hope Mr. Kato will add my statement and Ibu Endang also. But I agree with Pak Devriman. Once we have a policy, we need to have a common understanding from the central policy maker and the sub-central policy maker. This is our first client. The first client is the provincial and district, because with the decentralization, policy could be not always in line. One, what is the benefit of having that policy? Should be fully agreed between the central and subnational. If immediately the provincial feel that this policy will make big loss for the provincial, and then this is start of the rejection. So first have to convince. That's why very important to conduct advocacy and convincing what is the background of the policy. The second target is the community. It's very much related with the perception. Large-scale movement always interpret that they are lose their freedom. They don't think that they should part of the transmission, how to cut the transmission. What they feel, I cannot go to my work, I cannot go to anywhere because of restriction. Perasaan ini yang harus dihilangkan. Yang kedua adalah stigma. Orang kalau tertular dia akan isolated, it's like terdakwa, tidak mendapatkan treatment yang empati. We need to have more empathy. That's a big lesson from our situation. But time by time, it's gradually people start to understand. People reject to have vaccinated, but now people looking for vaccination. So there's a big change. So again, I agree, communication is important. Communication is depend on who is our client. Different client will different way of communication. Pak Kato, you want to add? Or Ibunda?
Thank you very much for very important questions. And I just would like to emphasize that risk communication, community engagement is IHR capacity, is very important part of our health security systems. And we have to continue to strengthen. COVID-19 has particularly reiterated this importance, how we communicate these risks. And as I mentioned during my presentation, risk communication should be based on risk assessment. In order to do so, I think, yes, as you suggest, we should probably build the capacity of epidemiologists to communicate. But at the same time, we should work with a risk communication expert, specialist, by forming the team. Risk communication experts should also join the risk assessment team to jointly conduct risk assessment so that risk communication experts can effectively communicate. And we may even train journalists how to communicate these public health risks. So those are probably very important activities in the coming years. At the same time, probably many of you have heard, infodemic management is also become very important agenda during this COVID-19. Means as much as virus, information also circulates so much. And sometimes this will confuse people, including rumors, misinformation, disinformation. So authority side, it's also very important to monitor what information is being circulated in social media, and if there is any misinformation, disinformation, authority may need to respond quickly by providing accurate information. So social media provides a challenge, but also opportunity. How we can work with social media to effectively respond to misinformation, disinformation is also important agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just to add, Pak Haryadi and Dr. Masaya Kato, as my presentation, the risk communication and community engagement is part of the COVID preparedness and response plan. So, as we all know about the preparedness and response cycle, we now learn from the COVID pandemic to face a future emergency. We need to do and conduct the capacity building and continuously prepared for the emergency or health emergency, including community engagement and risk communication. And risk assessment is part of the planning process. And the risk assessment itself, it is a systematic analysis using the evidence and data that we gathered, and we put it into the contextual based on the evidence that we have to be available for the decision making to make decision. So if we do the risk assessment correctly using the data and using the systematic tool, I think it will inform and be a powerful advocacy tool for the decision maker to do their response and do the decision, because it will inform what are the consequences and what are the likelihood of the risk if they do the intervention that is recommended during the risk assessment, or what are the impact and likelihood of further spread of the disease or health emergency impact if we do not do the recommendation informed by the risk assessment. So I think the capacity building for the risk assessment should be built up in all levels, including the national and subnational level, and it can be incorporated into the curricula training model. For example, the Ministry of Health has already included the risk assessment part for the risk assessment for acute public health event into the accredited training for the rapid response team. And maybe it can be also furthermore introduced to the healthcare workers and also to the academia. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the great speaker. I think maybe we can give applause to the third speaker. And maybe before I closing this panel, I will say hello to the Zoom. Hi participant for Zoom. Sorry, we not communicate with you. Hi. Yeah. Hopefully all of you can stay until tomorrow. Yeah. And then maybe I have some announcement. Firstly, for the oral speaker, after third panel, after fourth panel, you can stay, keep join in the Zoom for the oral speaker, because the KKP will be stay in Luring, and then for the PIE and oral speaker, we can join for the online and offline. And for the second announcement, PIE have launched the journal, and I think in here some participant maybe needed publication. Maybe Mbak not yet share screen. Yeah, we have new journal. The name journal is Epidemiological Journal of Indonesia. Yeah, we invite all of you to submit article, and then this journal will be internationally, but now we still waiting manuscript for all of participants. This is now still free, yeah. Because of that, maybe we can invite all of you. Okay, I think this is the end for the panel third. I'm sorry, maybe I have overtime for the MC, and then I will give back to the MC. Thank you.